So thank you for being here. This is going to be the first of a series of interviews for SilverStrides. This is Erin McKenna. She is an alum of Stevens. We met a few weeks ago at Biomedical Engineering Day on campus. She's class of 97, operating partner of Amplify at Mass General Brigham Innovation. And I know you wanted to share another position you had.
Well, one of the things I learned about shifting into academia is you wear multiple hats. There's a reason that people's footers get longer, and that's because you're wearing multiple hats. I'm also serving as a program director for Brigham Ignite, which is a translational funding program that supports Brigham and Women's Hospital researchers and investigators.
Oh, amazing. That's very cool. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed learning about what you do at BME Day and how you're kind of spanning the technology side of things and the business and supporting entrepreneurship. So that's very exciting. And then I saw this at a conference I was at a few months ago, and the speaker was talking about how we always give our resume introductions, but we never give our non-resume introductions. So I wanted to also give you the opportunity to add to your introduction more so than just the resume bullet points that I had.
Sure. I think the things that come to mind are this is somewhat on my resume, but I live in a building in the South End in Boston that was at one point basically a home for what was called wayward women. And really what that meant was you were a single woman with not living in a family home. And, in around 1870, when it became that building, at the time, economically, it was challenging for women to be able to rent themselves, have economic freedom. So buildings like this provided a place for younger women to be able to call a home while they worked in jobs and, fulfilled an important area of need if they didn't have deep family connections.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Awesome. So I have some questions here. I kind of split them up into what I'm thinking of these three pillars of SilverStride. So lifelong learning is one, which I'm really excited about doing more with. And then after that, we'll get into physical activity and social connection, which were kind of the founding ideas behind SilverStrides. So starting with lifelong learning and cognitive health and everything that goes with that. Can you describe your current roles and give some background about what you're doing and what your day-to-day life looks like?
Sure. So, before I joined Mass General Brigham and became a part of their innovation office, I was at Boston Scientific Corporation for just shy of 16 years. And I spent my career in research and development and then in project management related to developing and commercializing various medical devices. And so when I joined the hospital, what I needed to be ready to do was engage with a wider range of innovators, scientists, clinicians, and some engineers, but more scientists, clinicians who are developing an even broader range of technology types than I would have been exposed to in an industry setting. So, the description of being, the extremes being maybe an inch wide and mile deep, that was more what I was used to functioning under in industry setting. I had to flip it to being, a mile wide and an inch deep and learning how to efficiently assess a potential technology to understand how to prioritize my time and effort towards it. I tend to focus looking for opportunities where if we were able to apply some internal funding, we could develop a technology towards what we believe would be a viable commercial inflection point. Perhaps we could generate initial data that would make a company interested in licensing it, or it would make the technology strong enough that you could then create a new company around it. And so you need to be able to look across a very large landscape of activities to try to understand who might be developing something that could have strong product potential, and also understand what's going on in the investment landscape to sense as to what direction would be more or less promising for those really early technologies to aim for. So that's a
Yeah,
lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis.
that's cool. You must see some interesting stuff coming through, or
Yeah,
really like just a ton of different ideas.
yeah. And I think the range of what I've gotten involved with has been broader than I ever would have imagined, which has been really exciting. And so certainly my day-to-day role is placing me in a constant lifelong learning, daily lifelong learning setting. What is important though is to make sure that I am giving myself time to take breaks. Just because of the speed and the breadth of what could be coming at me, you can't be on all the time. And so it is important to, yeah, as exciting and as I can get really deep into some things as much as I can when I find something that I can engage around. I also need to make sure to not just, throw my whole life into it, which, it's funny how sometimes that can happen when you're really excited about something. All of a sudden you're spending all of
Yeah.
your time doing it. I'm sure you can relate just with what you've been doing here with SilverStrides.
Yeah, I was gonna say like definitely with SilverStrides, it's something that I was passionate about, and I had never had a project like that, like in college, in school. Like, you're given assignments, and if you relate to it, that's awesome. But there was never anything that I was as emotionally connected to as SilverStrides. And then also with I just started my PhD in the fall, and so I
Mm,
went from it's still academic, but it's like I'm getting to focus on the research that I'm excited about, which is great. But
mhm.
also like I'm so much more tempted to just get like sucked in and forget to take breaks and
Yeah.
lose that lose that kind of perspective of like, oh, I've been looking at this for hours.
Yeah.
So it's definitely different, but exciting when you find something that you're excited about.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it is amazing how quickly time flies when you do find something that's that exciting and start
Yeah.
putting your efforts into it,
Yeah. I'm
for
curious,
sure.
like what are you seeing, like general trends, ideas are you seeing that you're excited about right now?
I mean, the biggest trend that is true in every technology bucket is that you're seeing increasing presence of AI solutions. Generative AI is a part of it, but a lot of it is, and has been more traditional machine learning AI, in particular in areas where you can reduce the workload for clinicians or various supporting administrators. And at a time that resources have just become strained, in particular in recent weeks for a variety of reasons, looking for these kinds of, operational efficiencies are, fundamental, but most fundamental, I think, has been really figuring out how to deload clinicians in particular who, as we've adopted more electronic health records, there has just been a lot of work that got added to their plates that, in a lot of cases started pushing clinicians out from being
Yeah.
clinicians. And so, it is exciting to see, more solutions be moving forward that would help at different steps along the way, everything from diagnosing a patient with the disease, even identifying somebody before. So not necessarily making a diagnosis, but potentially identifying someone as, hey, you should take a closer look at this person. And through to just being able to capture the result of a of a visit, sorry, and then be able to give the clinician a write-up of the visit notes that they can then go back and edit to make sure that it's complete. But and I think that's a pretty common way that people are encountering generative AI is, can you write a first draft of whatever? Well, just kind of imagine a version of that being based off of capturing a visit audio, turning it into text, and then letting the clinician just edit from there. And the
Yeah.
time savings and efficiency that can come from that kind of, additional improvement. So there's just all different kinds of places where AI, comes in, in addition in the discovery space for new drugs and biologics, AI is playing increasing, roles. There's still a lot to be seen around how effective are AI tools at designing future therapeutics, but there's
Yeah.
certainly a lot of enthusiasm about the potential to really reduce some of the time that it might take to make these discoveries.
Yeah, that's exciting. My dad is a physical therapist, so I'm sure he would love for AI to develop to the point where he can spend more time with the patients and less time doing documentation.
Yes, yes.
From from personal experience with him, I think he would like that. So I am curious, like, how has your experience changed over time as a woman in STEM, and what advice would you give to women and girls of all ages who are interested in learning more about STEM?
I think that as a woman, I had to come to terms with the fact that in some ways I am still treated differently in my field compared to other people. And in some cases that comes with advantages, in some cases that comes with disadvantages. But I think it was an important thing to learn and calibrate on, that there are times that, there are just these unintentional biases that people might have, and to at least just be able to appreciate and understand that they're there, and then look for collaborators, people, bosses that are also similarly curious about these things in addition to the scientific work, so that we can also make sure that we are, truly being open to a range of potential possibilities around how we work, how we interact with each other, and what we even choose to work on. And I think that third part in particular, um, since I have been in my field, we still are working to gather better clinical data around how women experience disease compared to men who have largely been subjects of clinical studies. And this is all so important to make sure that we're developing the right range of therapeutic solutions. But also when you're developing medical devices, that you're developing them in ways that the range of clinicians that might encounter them are going to be ready to use them. And so I say all of this mainly because I think what helps make it even better is when we encourage as wide a range of people to get involved with STEM and not feel afraid about engaging with it, because it is through having the diversity of perspective that we can get stronger. And there are a lot of studies that show that teams that are more diverse are more effective in scientific and in business contexts. So I think for me, just recognizing that STEM is an important space, there a lot of potential solutions can live in, and we can all have different levels of engagement with that science. I learned early on I was not the kind of person that wanted to roll up my sleeves and be in the lab all the time, but having an opportunity to do that work helped inform my understanding of how you then develop a solution. And
Yeah.
so, I think being able to get past any potential, fears or concerns that maybe you wouldn't be good enough is something I've certainly struggled with along the way. But putting yourself in the situation at least gives you an opportunity to learn from it and then go from there. And so to me, those are the two things I think are important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm curious also, so since you were on campus recently at
Mhm.
Stevens,
Yeah.
what changes you were happy to see, not happy to see, could be Stevens or Hoboken related.
I think that to me, the thing I was happiest to see is that we have a growing biomedical engineering presence. That wasn't there when I graduated from Stevens. My undergraduate degree is in chemical engineering. Now through the cooperative education program, was able to work in pharmaceutical and medical device industry. So that was the place that I was really learning about that part of myself and learning that that was a passion that I had. But I didn't really have a curricula that fully supported me in that exploration. And for me, it was just so exciting to not just see all of the teams presenting at BME Day and the range of undergraduate and graduate students, but also then to be able to wander over into the academic building afterwards and really see part of a building that when I was there was entirely chemical engineering, now have space for biomedical engineering and, the kinds of innovations that got me excited about working in the medical device industry on posters on the walls. So for me, that was probably the most exciting thing to see. And, I really can't think of too many disappointments. Really, the only one I can think of is I am a little sad that at the moment the archway is not constructed, and I do hope at some point that gets reconstructed.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think I think when I started, they said they were gonna rebuild it, and but then there's been a lot of construction on campus,
Yeah.
which is exciting, but they won't put up the castle archway again until it's
Yeah.
done. But I did mechanical engineering for undergrad, so co-op was how
Mhm.
I was exposed to co-op and research was how I got exposed to biomedical engineering, and that's the department I'm in now for my graduate studies. So
Yeah.
that's exciting. Yeah, BME Day was a great event.
Agreed.
Yeah. And then last question for cognitive health and lifelong learning. Um, and in the spirit of lifelong learning, what profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, geez. Uh, you know, um, I think that there does come a point that there's a lot of value in shifting into teaching. And I have taught occasionally along my career, in particular after I joined the hospital. There have been times I've been invited to teach or co-lead day-long courses or a couple-hour lectures. And it is really satisfying to be able to engage with people. I was just speaking with a colleague earlier today who has also shifted to spending a lot of his time teaching. And this is someone who has had multiple startups and a very strong academic career on his own as a researcher. And, I think that there's something both satisfying but also crucial related to that opportunity to take lessons and propagate them to others so that we
Mhm.
can continue to move things along. I think of the torchbearer statue and how important it is to be sharing those kinds of lessons with the next generation or just others, propagating the others that if they, otherwise wouldn't have encountered that idea, might not even be aware there's something to carry forward. So that's
Yeah. Yeah, great teachers make a big difference for sure.
Mhm.
For sure. So I wanted to transition into talking a little bit more about physical activity. It's important to SilverStrides, but you also just kind of mentioned it during BME Day, and so it seems like it's something that's important to you also. So for context, the other day you were talking about how you played soccer while you were here.
Yep.
You've done races, you are a rower.
Hmm.
And I'm experiencing now transitioning out of college athletics and then into finding ways to stay active that I enjoy on my own. So I'm curious, like, how has that experience been for you and in different phases of having different passions to stay active?
Yeah, I really relate to this because I have a very clear memory of struggling at first when I graduated from Stevens, because not just at Stevens had I played soccer and been a part of organized sports, but all through my childhood. I played soccer, I studied the martial arts for a period of time. And it was through having those organized, scheduled events that I was exposed to exercise. And so when I graduated from Stevens, that was really the first time that I was confronted with the conundrum of how do you figure this all out on your own,
Yeah.
and one way is you could try to find teams, and certainly there are different leagues out there, but I quickly ran into recognizing that some things just weren't going to fit in my work life. And so that's really what shifted me into running and trying to figure out how to run. And that was eventually what led me to focusing on some races, because I found out pretty quickly, okay, if it's me, I have to have something I'm aiming at. Otherwise, I might just not get up and run. Now, some of that is running the activity that I love, that was going to get me excited. Was I doing something that was enjoyable? Maybe not the best matchup for me. I think, that when I eventually discovered rowing and found how much I enjoyed it, that I think also helped me get more active as well. But also I think learning about ways that you can, and certainly with more of the newer technologies available for runners to network and connect with each other, it does make, the ability to put together groups, find groups, join groups, all of that starts to bring back that element of, okay, now there's a critical mass. When I first got into rowing, I was sweep rowing, which meant I was in team boats. And now you have, okay, we all have to meet at this time. And so it kind of also
Yeah.
served to help get some of that back in. So it wasn't all on my own. But certainly I think, after years of learning how to do things on my own and recognizing sometimes you just have to do that something on your own, um, I've learned enough ways to be able to, manage that more on my own, and I don't think I would have figured that out had I not gone through that initial shock of not having a structured system where there would be physical activities planned.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea of finding the balance between like the benefits you get from working out on your own and like having that time to yourself and having it easy to fit into your schedule, but also like there's so many benefits from like group physical
Yeah.
exercise and having that team and the
Mhm.
camaraderie to motivate you.
Yeah.
So I like having the options for both. Um, and then I'm curious, what is your favorite place, or do you have a special place that you like to walk or run or row?
Well, one of the great things about Boston is there are some really nice places to run, and running down and running around the Charles River is nice because there are a lot of bridges and you can create these loops. So you can do a 3 mile loop. You can easily make it be a 7 mile loop. You can do a 3 mile loop in the other direction.
Yeah.
The rowing I do is predominantly on the Charles, and I think compared to a lot of other waterways, the Charles is relatively protected, and there
Oh,
aren't,
that's nice.
it's not like there's a major shipping channel and you have to contend with large boats coming through. It's mostly smaller pleasure craft boats, and smaller than that, a lot of kayakers. There's some sailing that happens, and then stand-up paddle boarders. So that's a lovely environment to be able to get out in. And the other place within Boston that I like running is I live in I live in the South End, which is not far from South Boston, which is the famous neighborhood that has been in a lot of movies that have been made about Boston recently. And in South Boston, there's a little hill called Telegraph Hill, and for where I am, it's about maybe a 2.5 mile run there, and then I can run up a steep hill and have this amazing view of the Boston Harbor and surrounding areas in Boston, and then I run back. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Having a destination to get to, that's very cool. I'm gonna move into the last category of questions, which is social connection. Do you have a role model either in your career or in your personal life that's had a big influence on you?
So the partner that I work with in Amplify, her name is Dion Kobayashi. I see her as a role model in understanding how to balance work with life. She, I think, is much better at it than I am, and I appreciate getting to work with her and learn from her, how she does that and deploys that in her life. Um, also my aunt has been a role model for a long time. And, in particular in showing what life can be like once you retire, how you can still stay active and be very involved and both connected with your community, but also really taking on work that is still satisfying and exciting at, a range of levels. So both of those, I think, have been, helpful for me in recent years in particular.
I'm fortunate that you introduced me to your aunt over email, and something that she mentioned in our first conversation was Robert Putnam's work. He's a Harvard professor and a political science scientist, and he's known for Bowling Alone and Join or Die. Um,
Mhm.
which describe kind of this decline in American community connections over the
Mm.
past half century, and highlights the importance of community groups. So I'm curious, like what community groups that you're involved in, and how does that impact your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think the community I've been most involved in recent years is the rowing community. I'm a member of a boat club, the Union Boat Club, and through that, we row, but there's a social connection with the people that we're going out and rowing with, and the groups also plan social events periodically throughout the year. I've been a member of the club long enough that I have a lot of personal friends through the club. And, I think when you're a part of a club like that, you keep track of, different members have different needs. Someone is sick, the club will respond. Before I joined Union, I learned to row at community rowing, and community rowing had a similar kind of a culture, different people, but same kind of vibe. You rode together. That was the main focus, but there were also opportunities to plan dinners together. And if, I went through having a prolonged illness in that period, and it was the rowing people that, connected with me, made sure I had chicken soup and anything that I needed to get through that time, and helped me feel, like I wasn't on my own. So, certainly that's been a place that I've really connected, but also through just a range of work colleagues. When I first moved to Boston, well, there's a lot of college students here, and certainly a lot of people that aren't from Boston in Boston. At that time, it still was a little bit more of a, closed. It was considered a little less friendly than other cities, and, had more of a reputation of, people are born in Boston and stay here their whole lives. Things have shifted. I mean, we have a mayor who was not born in Boston for the first time currently.
Oh,
And,
wow.
I think, I feel that a lot of the people I've connected with in Boston are also actually not from Boston. And we all connected with one another because we had that in common as well. And so it wasn't a formalized thing, but you start meeting people, and when you're all trying to solve for the same problem of learning who you can connect with, and how can you support one another, you can, it's interesting to see that sometimes there isn't a perfect organization out there, but people can be aligned around a similar need and work together to solve it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. That's something I didn't expect from like moving to a city. Like I grew
Mhm.
up in a suburb and that had a very like small town feel, but I think that there's a different type of community in a city too, and finding other people who are from other places and meeting lots of different types of people.
Yeah.
So that's great. So I wanted to thank you for being the first interview for these SilverStrides videos. I really appreciate it. And I wanted
Thank
to
you. It's
ask
my
if
pleasure.
you thanks. I wanted to ask if you had any suggestions for who I should interview next or what topic I should dive into.
Well, I certainly think that the topics related to the questions that you're asking me around how have people figured out ways to maintain physical activity, maybe even digging into problems they're still grappling with in that direction. Because certainly as I've aged, different things become harder, different things become easier. It's not all harder, I can tell you that, but it is interesting, going through that and experiencing that and then learning how to navigate around it and balancing understanding whether something is now a limitation and you need to potentially shift in a different direction or a challenge that you can work through. And I mean, thinking of people, I mean, I'm personally just excited that at some point you'll meet my aunt and or the other people in her network. I think they would be, there's definitely someone, if not her, but someone among those folks that would probably be a really great interview for this series with lots of different perspectives in a different part of the state than I am, or the Commonwealth, I should say.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to talking to her and the different people in the organizations that she's involved in. I think though that would be really great.
Great,
Well,
great.
thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm excited to share this interview and start sharing more interviews like this.
I look forward to it. Thank you. It's really been a
Thank
pleasure.
you.